today is day 26 and we are on August 2023, 3 o'clock, almost 50 minutes at toast in the afternoon, Saturday. We will have our conversation, quite simple, quite clear. You please will observe that we are talking about pandemic crime and a structured proof on international criminal court. By risks observed as purpose against mankind, considering even sometimes the fake medical statement or report to obtain advantage through diseases and other things. And the paramilitary mobilization as a risk, as great third war for solution of all things. At the badge we will observe that we have some objects independent made as observation and research. It's an asset. If you got the entry at MySpace, check all things during 10 years and did nothing, it's something that you must be, heavily punished by this, because you have no excuse to do this and the silence is a crime. Therefore, accusation is about this. Antitrust Justice USA and Europe, the International Criminal Court, Blind Eye Association, corruption as multi-level. We will pick this news at the Brazil, which is a paper on 2019, when we started to request as infiltration of the agents internationally trained with skills at the Davos and the United Nations Summit. Brazil has a tax fraud problem at the agribusiness. Was under investigation, federal investigation. We observe that our criminal system works by the physiological elements and corrupting all things, including the communication by fake record as a crime in Brazil. But it's difficult to get if you have only the Brazilian source, prepared and made by criminals and criminals, leading procedure and decisions. With a different source, you can do the comparative measurement, and of course that information will pop at your eyes. Guarantee 33, Article 5 combined with Article 4, Clause number 9, the purpose and commitment of the Brazil as constitutional commitment and reason to be at the international community. Do we have any kind of proper information or solution about the case since 2019, considering that the agribusiness is at the supply chain as food, and we have Food and Drugs Administration and agents all around complaining Brazil at this segment? First question. 2019. Since 2014, Brazil has no cooperation with this effort. It's anti-crime. At the OECD, you have the complaint about the delays, which is the delay, do not do things on time, and lazy. If you are obliged to do, you do, in a terrible way. McGregor theory, X and Y. Employees, the two types of human resources you have. It's a theory and administration too. And then we will check that the common purpose against corruption carry and must involve we all. But we couldn't check this. We could observe that you had strong networks on corporations and public departments through corruption. And we used this strong networks through corruption Some areas only will have the interest to commit crimes. And after have the traders, the organization by hiring process and nepotism based on corruption, doing operation trading procedures or having decisions based on corruption, and having the corruption of an entire workflow to be replaced by something that will have a physiological movement at the very first time. For instance, when you diverted money from your treasury using clandestine ways as observed at the unit's operation term, we will check that you have the stochastic process and the storage somewhere in general banks. Going on and having physiological argument as transference to justify this, like donation at the campaign in USA or whatever, you has a parallel financial system. And this kind of thing with the misuse of institutional and state power by the relation domain at the institution as image of criminal activity, and image on institution is indeed the domain or representatives of the domain as criminal purpose, affecting since your local department until the entire United Nations, we will understand that the misuse of power will put the regular activity in a situation as oppression at first, then suppression can be observed at the patterns we have at the tax frauds and institutional benefits and privilege misused, including the silence about cases. And then we'll have everything covered by fake data with the migration of modified data, erasing the things you have. It's cultural destruction, a judicial culture. You are doing cultural destruction of the justice, for instance, or your company, or the history of your government on time, which implies how you use the power in a democracy representing the people, but not anymore, since you do everything by groups of interest. This kind of thing have storage the money and operating now like this as functionalities at departments, contracts and instruments with estimated interest that linked to the domain of criminal circumstance by the image and representatives at the regular area placed on the department having the use of power. We understand that the same way you do the storage of things after divert the money and then operates in a physiological way as workflow or system, indeed based on crime and a strong network as corruption. We only need the plea bargain to get this entire thing and in 19 days able to be sent to jail in the United States of America after the last hearing procedure on U.S. defensive system, considering the summits we will have in 19 days at the United Nations in Davos, probably in Europe, I think, or wherever. But for sure, the United Nations will be in American homeland. We are doing the American security some way by the stability required by this Constitution. And it will be under the hearing procedure. Now the procedural conclusion using the US defensive system plus the NATO. Many of you will invent another time, an excuse to avoid this, right? It's about the criminal behavior. Bravery is something that you didn't got yet. Then we will observe that the corporations, we will have the pattern now as the trust, as the big macro pattern as mobilization of trust. The corporations will be linked, for instance, at the communication as provider or at your health system or offering something at the market. We will have some kind of association with public department. Will violate the rights of an individual, group, or entire nation by this kind of thing having the disruptive event during a continuous process as workflow or relationship. You will have the complaint against the provider, for instance, as communication or whatever. And the parallel thing will steal the advantage and take your money, for instance, at this time. For instance, if you have the communication and a blackout in an entire nation at this period, we replace it after comeback with parallel architecture, collecting the data or obtaining the advantage, then have a new blackout and have the continuing. From here, indeed, we had this moment stolen with the quoting migration now on time and space by the back or the loop effect to the regular service, because you do the plagiarism of this effort. It's another intellectual crime perpetrated by this criminal system. And combining this, which is the misuse of power for criminal purpose, taking advantage and cracking the regular pattern, and during the period when you have this cracked, you had the storage and then replace, combined with the money diverted before, you will for sure take advantage. Many businesses are going to be choked or complained by the consumers, and then you will offer solutions here, considering that you have the institutional favor, you had the storage money that applied on you, and it's not fair as competition on the market. This pattern was observed in Brazil before at the Social Security, when you had the interruption of something and took one monetary unit of, for instance, $1 million of social benefit as individuals obtaining this, and you do this every day, 3 times a day. For instance, you have 3 millions a day. But Brazil has no solution about the case. Probably the variables involved obtained advantage, better offices, privilege, and after all, the migration of modified data, because Brazil is very reliable in everything they do. This is the most relevant thing we have to talk here one more time, and finish the conversation. We will observe that in general you will have any kind of pattern here as regular pattern with an interruption on it during which can be a blackout, a strike on your company, or a fire, even a disaster or something like this. During this period, as empty ball, you will have the interval as things may, and then you will come back your activity from this point. It's a process, as you can observe, sequential, systematical, Chicago School intentional. This kind of activity happened with money, and then you storage money on bank. This kind of activity have observed the power, and then you have institutional crimes. This case here is related with the corruption of the workflow, linking the illicit advantage stored somewhere, the misuse of power to keep this kind of thing. The question is the same question considering the fourth accusation, which is the blind eye association. How they got there, why they are still there. Blind eye proved. Blind eye as interaction and association, public and corporate, from local to global. Trust scam proved as angle stone for mobilization. Corruption multi-level, impacting the organization of your society, destroying your institution, the values you have, the heritage, traces and cultural things you have. The same thing we will observe this pattern at the medicine and others, considering that nowadays you have the show business and things transferring people from hospital after have the driven by invented disease to be murdered. And it's make film, and considering that's part of it, entertainment, it's torture and murder, crimes against mankind, humanity crimes. If you have public departments on it, as we observed, even by the fake record or the lazy behavior, isso on International Criminal Court. Isso on International Criminal Court. We will request, for instance, that you have a disease, a flu or something like this, but you have fake items and piracy on the industry of medicine, and the medicine won't gonna be enough, but you make the virus or the bacteria stronger, right? Is this represent any kind of threat to mankind? You will request by the guarantee 33 Article 5 in Brazil, and from Brazil and peers, the model is observed. We will check that the model is driver embassy A, driver embassy B, A.1, and charge dismantle order B. I think that is A1 and B1, B2 and B2 that I don't remember now, B3, A3 and B3, A4 and B4. I will put on blog, and the idea is kind of that this entire thing will lead to the frequency of who is doing the hearing and kind of who are the offenders. We'll finish here, 17 minutes. Have a great Saturday.